belly fat. One of the most frustrating challenges that women experience in their 40s and 50s and 60s as they're transitioning through perimenopause and menopause. And probably one of, the most Googled things on the internet. So what I'm going to be talking about today is providing you with one solution to addressing belly fat. Hello, for those of you who are joining me. I see Kathy is watching. I see a couple of you watching. Hi, Kim. If you are joining me live, just say hi, and then it'll start popping up in my feed. Yeah, it's definitely one of the bigger challenges of midlife. There's a couple of different reasons why we start to accumulate belly fat as we move into perimenopause and menopause. And again, what I'm going to be talking about today specifically is inflammation and diving into three things. So we're going to talk about, number one, like what happens during perimenopause and menopause that makes us more prone to inflammation. We're going to talk how inflammation specifically can make us gain belly fat. And then I'm going to give you some strategies for creating an anti-inflammatory approach when it comes to your diet as part of the solution. Now, obviously, when it comes to belly fat, we can't completely eliminate it by just, focusing on inflammation, because there are more things in play. But the idea over the summer is we're going to be looking at one challenge and I'm going to be providing one solution. And that's what we're talking about today. Hello, Brandy. Hello, Cassie. Hello, Toby. Hello, Megan. Megan, hopefully I'm saying that right. Hi, Dawn. Okay, so let's talk about, I've got my notes. So if you see me peering over here, it's just so I make sure that I don't forget something. So the first thing I want you to understand is why we are more prone to inflammation once we enter our 40s and 50s, especially women sort of in your late 40s, early 50s, because a lot of it is tied to our wonderful hormone estrogen, okay? Estrogen, it always comes back. And a lot of women think estrogen really is just like, only has to do with having babies and our menstrual cycle, but it has a lot of roles in the body. And one of those roles is that it helps us prevent inflammation. It is an anti-inflammatory hormone. And so when we see a decline in estrogen, we are simply more prone to the effects of inflammation in the body. So when we see a decline in estrogen, we see more effects of inflammation in the body. So that's number one. The other thing that happens when we see a decline in estrogen, and I've talked about this before, is we become more insulin resistant. And so how does that cause inflammation? I'm not going to go into super huge detail here because I know you girls are probably more interested in what to do about it, but I do want you to understand what's happening, because then it's going to help you understand why an anti-inflammatory approach is going to help. But just super quickly, if you have more insulin resistance, what that basically means is that your body the hormone insulin is not really doing its job anymore. And what insulin is supposed to do is it's supposed to take any blood sugars and pull them into your cells. And when you have elevated blood sugar levels over a long period of time, you are going to have more inflammation. And so as estrogen goes down, insulin resistance goes up, blood sugars go up, we see more inflammation. Okay, so that's reason number two. The third reason, again related to that lovely hormone estrogen, is that it will impact our ability to handle oxidative stress, which is AKA like free radicals. I'm sure you've heard of them before. You can think of oxidative stress or free radicals as like rust in the body, right? Like rust that's corroding our cells. And what happens is that estrogen plays a role in helping us balance out that oxidative stress and those free radicals. So again, as estrogen levels decline, we just don't have that ability to handle them as well. That's where the anti-inflammatory diet, and we'll talk about that more in a second here, is really going to come into play. And then the last one, and potentially the most frustrating, ladies, is how estrogen, the decline in estrogen changes our body composition. And so what happens is that estrogen, one of the roles of estrogen is to give us our feminine figure. And so when we have lots of estrogen, we have bigger breasts, bigger hips, bigger sort of thighs, right? And it's giving us that sort of hourglass shape. When we lose estrogen, our body composition changes and the body starts to move, our tendency to store fat shifts from giving us those curves to our belly. And there's a couple of reasons why this happens. And part of it is because your fat cells actually become a source of estrogen in the body. We can talk about more that in another day, but just to understand for right now that body composition changes, you start to accumulate more fat around your belly. But what happens is that fat is it's visceral fat, right? That's what we start to gain, is that unhealthy visceral fat. And that visceral fat is metabolically active. In other words, it's producing things. And like I said, it produces estrogen. But one of the other things that it produces is these inflammatory cytokines is what they're called. And these I guess you're calling them, I don't even know what they would be, molecules, right? And these contribute to inflammation. And it's kind of a vicious cycle, because when we have these inflammatory molecules, these cytokines, they like to hang out in our belly fat. So it's kind of like the belly fat causes the inflammation and the inflammation promotes fat storage. So there's a little bit of a vicious cycle going on there. But my sort of approach when I'm kind of thinking about like how can we address this is I'm trying to think, okay, how can we get to the root cause, right? So, and there are certain things that we can control and there are certain things that we can't control. For instance, we can't really control declining levels of estrogen unless you are willing to go on hormone replacement therapy, which is totally cool. I'm not opposed to it. And that would likely have an impact here, because it would facilitate body composition. It would help with insulin sensitivity. It would give your body, it would take care of some of the imbalances that are caused by a decline in estrogen. But I also understand that not everyone can or wants to take hormone replacement therapy. So then we have to look at, well, what else can we address here? What else is going on here? So like I said, insulin resistance, right, is one. Oxidative stress, right, free radicals is the other. And then belly fat, right? Now, when it comes to the belly fat, what you're going to read in blogs and stuff about inflammation is, hey, just lose weight. It's going to help. And yes, it will help. Like if you lose weight and you lose belly fat, you will have less inflammation. But at the same time, you're probably like, well, thanks, Tips. That's why I'm listening to you, because I don't know how to do that. And so I feel like that is something that falls in the realm of having some control over, but not necessarily as much. So let's focus on what we do have control over. So I'm going to give you a couple of different ideas today. This is not in depth because, again, for the summer, I'm going to keep these short, but there's a couple of things that we can do. So strategy number one is we want to fight inflammation with our diet, right? So in order to do that, obviously we want to avoid inflammatory foods. Okay, I'm not saying don't eat them. I'm saying don't make them the priority in your diet. So, and a lot of these are fun foods, so I apologize, but sugar, alcohol, trans fats, fried foods, processed foods, right? Junk food, all of that is going to contribute to inflammation. I know it sucks, but it is what it is. Another one that's going to contribute is the type of fat that you are eating. And you may not realize this, but the type of fat that you eat can have either inflammatory properties or anti-inflammatory properties. And the small tip I'm going to give to you today is just go through your cupboard and look for anything that contains vegetable oils and chuck it. You want to get rid of it and replace it with anti-inflammatory fats. Olive oil for drizzling, avocado oil for cooking. If you just start there, you're already on the right track, okay? The next sort of like, when it comes to our diet, the next big thing we can do to fight inflammation is we can incorporate more omega-3 fatty acids. This is another type of healthy fat, omega-3 fatty acids. These are going to be anti-inflammatory, and there's a couple of different ways that you can incorporate more, and I'm going to give you 2 strategies today. So strategy number 1, I want you to remember the acronym SMASH, okay? Think of it as like, I am going to smash inflammation. So what does SMASH stand for? It sounds, let's see if I can remember this: salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring, okay? Those are your 5 fatty fish that are going to give you a really good dose of anti-inflammatory omega-3s. And what happens in the body is, when it comes to, it's a type of polyunsaturated fat. There are 2 main types, omega-6s and omega-3s. If you're having more omega-6s, vegetable oils, than omega-3s, you're going to have more inflammation. So you got to boost these up and lower these down, okay? If you do not like to eat fish, I would say try, because it's so good for you, just try different cooking methods. But okay, maybe you just can't handle it, or maybe you are vegan. I'm totally cool with that. Some plant-based sources, the best 2 are going to be flax seeds and chia seeds. And I would just get into the habit of sprinkling ground flax or ground cheese on your, like, you can put it in smoothies, you can sprinkle it over yogurt, you could sprinkle it on your cereal, you could sprinkle it on your salads, but just try and add those foods to your diet, ideally on a daily basis, okay? And then of course there are specific sort of superfoods that are known to have an anti-inflammatory effect. We won't go over all of them today, but there are a couple that I want to point out. One, which I'm sure you know, which is turmeric, ginger, garlic, cinnamon, okay? Those 4. So just think of ways that you can incorporate more of those foods into your diet. So again, you know, we could talk about an anti-inflammatory diet for much longer, but I just want to give you some basics and some strategies that you can start implementing today. So that's number 1. The second thing that I talked about was oxidative stress. So when I'm talking about oxidative stress and free radicals, I'm going to give you a little bit of a picture. And I remember seeing this when I was like in my 30s and maybe even my 20s, to be honest, I can't remember, but I was watching Dr. Oz. I don't know why. I think I may have still been in school, but I remember this very clearly. And so what he was showing is how, again, free radicals, what they do is they kind of like rust our cells, and antioxidants are what protects our cells from getting rusty. And the simple thing that he showed was 2 sides of an apple, right? Cut in half. And you could do this experiment at home, and you just put lemon juice on one apple and not on the other. And what you will see is that one apple will start to rot, whereas the other one will not. That is the power of antioxidants. And so when it comes to again, avoiding inflammation, we have to manage oxidative stress. We have to manage free radicals in the body, which means we have to have a diet that is super high in antioxidants. Guess what I'm going to talk about? Fruit and vegetables, right? Fruit and vegetables. There are some that are going to have more of an antioxidant effect. I wrote down berries, leafy greens, broccoli, colorful bell peppers, purple cabbage. But honestly, just eat the rainbow and eat a ton of them. Vitamin C in particular is a really great antioxidant. I usually have like the juice of at least 1 lemon every single day. I put it in my smoothies. I put it in my salad dressings. I put it in my like yogurt, my chia seed puddings. Berries are an excellent source of antioxidants. Mushrooms, and someone mentioned it in the post, but mushrooms are a really great source as well. And then beta carotene is also really good as a source of antioxidants. So think like carrots, squash, sweet potatoes, adding more of those into your diet, okay? And yes, it does work. I have another story. And if I have any new skin ladies in the group that sell new skin, maybe you know this, but again, way back in my 30s, I used to sell new skin. It's like a company that sells like supplements and beauty products amongst other things. But they had this super cool machine back in the day when I was selling their stuff. And what it did is it would read your palm. I can't remember what the science was, but it would read your palm and it would give you an antioxidant score. And back in the day, this is when I was really getting into paleo nutrition and I was eating a very whole foods diet. And we did a test with everyone in my family. So my mom, my dad, my husband, my sister, my brother-in-law, everyone had to go through the test because I wanted to see if it worked. I was rocking my antioxidant score, whereas the rest of my family were like, meh, meh, meh. And I really think that it was evidence that because I have been prioritizing antioxidants in my diet for a very long time, I have this capacity to fight oxidative stress. So yes, it does work. Okay, moving on. The third one that I talked about was insulin resistance, right? And again, declining levels of estrogen, rise in insulin resistance, more inflammation. So obviously the answer here is simple. You need to learn how to manage your insulin. Again, especially late 40s, early 50s, moving into postmenopause, because we don't have the protective capacity of estrogen anymore, and we will not be as efficient at metabolizing carbohydrates. So when I'm saying managing insulin, what I'm talking about is creating a glycemically balanced approach to your nutrition, right? So you want to avoid added sugars in your diet. Again, it's an inflammatory food anyways, but it's also going to cause insulin resistance. You know, swap out the processed carbs, the white bread, the tortilla, the pasta, and start eating more what I call smart carbs or whole carbs. So root vegetables, beans, legumes, whole grains, that kind of stuff. That will all help. And just making sure that you don't have an entire plate of carbohydrates that really is just a small portion. And all of those together are going to help you fight those sort of like main root causes that you have more control over. Okay, so once again, to recap, the major causes are going to be insulin resistance, lowering levels of estrogen, insulin resistance, oxidative stress, and belly fat. But we have more control over some of those elements and less over others. If you start to think of like one solution to that, it really is to dial in on your nutrition. Make sure that you are eating, that you're avoiding inflammatory foods, you're eating plenty of anti-inflammatory foods, you are getting your antioxidants to fight oxidative stress, and you are creating a glycemically balanced approach to your nutrition. And that's it, ladies. I hope that was helpful. Again, the idea with these summer trainings is I'm going to keep them short and sweet. We're looking at one challenge. We're looking at one solution. I think next week I'm going to dive into sleep or lack thereof. If that was helpful, if you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions about inflammation, put them in the comments. I will respond to you. That's about it. That's all I got for you today, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me, staying to the very end. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you all very soon. Bye.